Hans, thank you so much for taking some expensive time out of your day to have a bit of a chat with me.
It's my great pleasure to be here, and thank you for reaching out. It happened very fast. This morning we touched base, and this afternoon here we are chatting.
Yeah, we didn't know each other in the morning, and now we're best friends.
We're best friends, aren't we?
Lance, I'm really curious because when I did a little bit of research on you, your career, your resume is really quite impressive. You've got had 22 years in the New Zealand police force, had crisis negotiator for the New Zealand police for many years. As you were doing that, you also developed a program to help reduce the stress for the call center operators and the 111 call center operators. Through doing this and then being a negotiator, you were dealing with people, or one of the things that you did, from what I could understand, was helping or convincing people who are trying to commit suicide not to go ahead with it and really save their lives. How did all of this happen? Where did it start? How did you get into this?
Yeah, it's quite an unusual story, and they say you should have a 10-year plan. Well, my plan's about 10 weeks. So I was a builder until the age of 35.
Wow.
And I always wanted to be a cop, and I thought, it's my dream's gone. I'll just carry on as a builder. And the reason I became a builder was simply because I left school with no qualifications. The highest qualification I had when I left school was at carpentry, and so I thought I'll become a builder, and did that successfully. Became a project manager and construction manager.
Yeah.
But then at the age of 35, an opportunity came along to join the police. So I did, left my family behind, and off I went for 6 months at the police college. And very lucky in my career. I guess I get bored very easily. I'm somebody that can't sit still for 5 minutes. And so I joined the police, and then to become a negotiator, I was actually at an incident where a guy was in a house, barricaded in. He had a firearm in the house, and so all the police come along. The armed offender squad, they're called, and they sneak around and pointing guns towards the house, etc. And there were some people sitting in a car behind me just talking on the phone, and I just happened to mention, what are they? Who are they? Oh, they're talking to the person in the house. And that got me thinking, that's a pretty cool job. They're actually talking with the person. And that's what started. I applied to become a member of it, and then ended up becoming in charge of the Auckland, New Zealand team, and then became the national advisor for all of New Zealand police negotiation team. So it was quite a journey. Very lucky as far as that goes, promoting through, doing all sorts of work. And then at some point, I was working too hard, and I had burnout, and I ended up with depression. And so that sort of changed the way I saw the world. First of all, I wanted to find out why I was different to everybody else. What made me go mad, and the stigma and the self-doubt and the self-talk and the inner critic, and just everything, just overwhelmed with things. And I need to sort myself out. So I went and got some professional help, and stayed in the police, which was really helpful, because once you go through something like that, you become more connected, I think, with everybody else, more emotionally connected. And so I started studying it, and have never looked back, to be honest. I mean, I'm onto my 3rd diploma, and got a master's and 2 other diplomas. I'm just working my way through and just finding out what is going on inside of our heads. Yeah. And in the meantime, been able to develop some amazing programs on resilience. They call it personal resilience. I call it adaptability. So that's pretty much the shortened version of my life.
Right. So you left the police. Now, obviously, you're doing your own things. So from what I understand, you've taken what you've learned, your experiences, your life lessons, and started a new consultancy business. What do you do now? What does the consultancy business do?
Yeah, so I formed a company. I always wanted to have my own company, but what I wanted to have a business that was had a factory. It sounds weird. So when I was a builder, I was doing lots of maintenance work on carpentry maintenance, building maintenance on a factory, and I thought that would be pretty cool to do that. I should have my own factory, and I always wanted to do that, but I always wanted in the back of my mind to have my own business. And you can only spend so much time in the police. before it starts to wear you down, particularly doing the work that we were doing. So I ran the protection squad, which was in charge of witness protection and doing some, undercover work and just some very, very cool stuff, but taxing on you emotionally. And so it was either I stay and become very old and very cynical, or I leave and have a go. And so at that stage, I was in the emergency call centre, developing programs on how to engage with people who are in dire situations, and on emergency calls. How do you de-escalate? Doing that sort of work, and some work for the staff there. And so I thought, well, I might give it a go doing that. And I got my first break, started my first business. So the company is WARN, W-A-R-N, which stands for Wellness, Awareness, Resilience and Negotiation. And so I started doing that, and the police came out, spent a year doing it in contact centres. And then somebody said to me, why don't you do this for other people? Why don't you do this for other organisations? And in fact, why don't you expand? And so I started looking at things and from a different perspective. So everything that centres around us is around what goes on inside our head. Yeah. So we've got three major pillars now: communication, safety, and resiliency, right? So, or adaptability, as I call it. And so the work that we do these days is all based on how information flows into our head, into our mind. It's tagged with an emotion. Yeah. So the way I show people is, as I'll say, and this is an actual fact, anxiety or depression is in every family in the world, right? And it's in your family, my family, and right now people watching this are thinking about that person. And so that's what happens inside our head. It gets tagged inside the limbic system where our emotional regulator is. It then goes back to our reference library, our hippocampus, and says, what's your reference material here? And then the action comes to the fore in the prefrontal cortex. This is what you should do. And just understanding that basic concept and then taking it even further. So, we're very lucky. We're doing a lot of work, and particularly in the environment we're in now, this COVID stuff where uncertainty reigns and, where we're feeling overwhelmed and tired. Dreams are dreams are based on our past. Yeah. So all of that stuff's going on. So what is it? And so I've been working on that. And then how do you know when somebody's struggling with their negative thoughts, and what can you do about it? How can you approach them? So we've developed a program basically on all the stuff that I've learned through my personal journey and the work I do at the police to where we are today. And I must say, I'm very humbled.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it kind of ties with the next question that I will have for you, because it's stress, anxiety, depressions. They are things that are really quite heavily talked about right now, and you touched on it on that a little bit. But from your experience, are there any signs that we can give people that they can look at and say, well, this is where I am in my life right now. I need to maybe step back a little bit, or it's going to hurt me, or just things that we can give people to understand so they can take care of themselves?
Yes, well, the first thing is how to identify in yourself when things are overwhelming. And so the way I explain it is I say, if you can, I ask people a question: are you in a washing machine? Are you in a movie? Or are you drowning? That's basically the three stages we go through. So first of all, information is just overwhelming us, right? So we feel like we're in a washing machine. Everything is just, we can't switch off at night time. We have trouble getting to sleep. Our diet goes, we don't care about our hygiene, and because they're just thoughts are all overwhelming. That's the first sign. The second sign is once that's been going on for a while, we get these chemicals dumped into our brain, and that's designed just to slow our thinking process down, and everything goes two-dimensional. And then we end up in this, feeling like we're drowning. And the reason for that is our breathing has really gone, and we're just in basic survival mode. And it's basically the three parts of our brain as we're going back down to, the brain stem where there's nothing but basic survival. That's for ourselves. For others, now the number one sign for me, and I do this in my sessions, I try and look at everyone, although sometimes there's 500 or 600 people in the room, so I can't look at everyone. But I try to look at as many people as I can and see where they look. And if they're struggling, they will always look away. Now, I've never undertaken a crisis negotiation in my life where the person has looked directly at me until I've asked them to. And so one of the first things that we do is we isolate ourselves, right? So we all have a voice inside our head, don't we? We all have this crazy voice that's going on. And what is it? It's self-talk. So it's a monologue. And we end up talking with ourselves, to ourselves, about ourselves. And that's the start of these things. And so we withdraw from people. We start to get busy. So during that first washing machine phase, we're starting to sort of isolate ourselves, but our thoughts are going, so we will get really busy to bury those thoughts, right? So you'll see somebody in the workplace will all of a sudden go completely flat out. And you think, gee, look at them go. Wow, let's give them some more work. The wrong thing to do, completely wrong thing to do. And then we all, after a while, they start, because they're not sleeping at night, they start to get tired, they start to look terrible, not shaving, not putting makeup on, not washing, not showering, same shirt 2 or 3 days, right? So we don't care. We just become a bit sit isolated. A great way, if it's a workplace or even if it's at home, they might be reading something or looking at their phone, but they won't actually be reading or looking at their phone. So they'll either be scrolling fast or flicking over pages too fast, or the page won't flick. All they want to do is be by themselves, right? So our mind says, when we get down in that deep, go away, hide, I've got your back. Yeah, that's what it tells us, right? You've got this. Plenty of other people have had it, you're fine. And it's the wrong thing. We really have to connect with people. And so those are the simple signs. So how do we approach somebody? Well, we just go straight to it. I mean, there's nothing, there's nothing clever about it. You don't have to be trained in this stuff. And this is one of the programs that we do teach. How to open a conversation. Well, it's pretty simple. You just take them somewhere neutral, maybe outside or to a cafe or somewhere, and you just go, I've just noticed there's some things going on. Is everything okay with you? It's that simple. Yeah. Now, most people will pull back initially and they'll go, I'm fine. You know, if I was to ask you how you're going right now, our default setting is, I'm fine, I'm good, right? So I ask people twice, are you? And I give them that little look and they go, I think so. Oh, that's okay. That's all I want you to do is think. And so that's really all it is. And look, and you do have to try 2 to 3 times because our automatic response is, I've got this, I'm good, I'm fine, don't worry about me, right? So that's our automatic pushback. Yeah. And so try a couple of other times. Well, I've just noticed, you know, you're just, you're sitting away from everybody. You used to come out a lot with us and I'm just busy. Are you, what are you doing? Yeah. Right. And you follow their lead. I'm busy doing what? Oh, I've got lots on. Well, what lots on? Is there something I can do to help? And you just continually don't push people, right? Yeah. And don't go jumping straight to it. Just gently nudge and soften your words when you're with people that are struggling. There's been some research done. 75 million messages have been analyzed into a crisis contact center. And the ones that worked the best were the ones where the words were slightly softened and don't ask a question with an apology. You know, don't start off by saying, look, I really do have to ask this, or I'm sorry that I've got to ask this, and then ask it. No, just ask it, but soften the way you ask it. So really it's about connecting with people, sitting with them. And if you can't think of something to say nothing. Just sit and look off into the distance with them when they're looking off in the distance. Yeah. Just be there. You know, and that's the best thing you can do. And then eventually they will break down, because when we are struggling, getting deep down, when we're in that second phase, that sort of dream phase, we want people to reach out to us. We really do. But we don't know, you know, for fear of, and it's all based on fear essentially. Worried about what they might think about us, worried about what, you know, we've done something wrong, or we, you know, I'm not a man anymore. All those sorts of reasons come into our head, which are irrational thoughts. Yeah. It's really interesting. So really, I'm trying to, as you're talking, I'm trying to think and analyze what you're saying.
my understanding is that our instinct when we get to those situations is to pull away from people,
Yeah.
which is actually the wrong thing to do. And if we feel stress, we should actually go and talk to people and be around people, because that helps. Is that true?
Yes, it is true. That's exactly, you've got it in one. We are community creatures, right? We always have been.
Mm,
As human beings, we've always lived, we started off living in small groups, right? And now the world just got so big, we're all over the place. But the hardwiring of our brain, there's a little bit of cultural differences with our hardwiring, but for the majority of our wiring, it's the same. We've been connected. Now, two things are going on in the world that have caused this disconnection. The first one is the advances in technology,
mhm.
right? So we're no longer talking with people because we can pick up our phone and we can just send them a message. We can do them
Yeah.
emails. We don't actually have to talk. Even just what you and I are doing now,
Mhm.
not many people do that anymore,
That's
right? So they just don't connect face to face. We're not face to face, but good enough. If I saw you on the street, I'd know who you were straight away now.
right.
So there's that human connection, right?
Mm,
And it's missing today. It's hardwired into all of us. We're
mhm.
wired to help other people. If I was to ask you right now, think of one thing that you're grateful for in your personal life, one thing you're grateful for in your work life, other than the fact you've got a job, and one thing you're grateful for about yourself. Chances are you might be thinking for your personal life, family or friends. Chances are for your work life, it might be the colleagues that you people you work with, or the people you meet, or the people you help.
Yeah.
And chances are for yourself, you had to stop and go, I'm kind. And you would have just gone straight to something and it would have made no sense at all.
Mm,
And so that's the way we're wired. If I was to come and say to you, hey, can I give you a hand with that? Our first response is, no, I've got this.
yeah.
Right. So we're wired that way. Connection is the key. It really, really is. And the research is absolutely overwhelming on this. So
Yeah.
we are, during, New Zealand's COVID, we go to level 4 even, we're still allowed to walk and talk, provided we've got some distance between us,
Yeah.
because those are the two things that keep us well.
Yeah, yeah, it's so interesting. One, in my work, I work a lot with real estate salespeople. I work a lot
Ah,
with business people, small businesses, and with those type of businesses, real estate or small business, you're always working. And I know from what I read about you, from what I could hear you say, that one of the things that you say that is really important is to have the ability to switch off, to have work time and home time. But with
mm,
those businesses, it's really what are some things that people can do to go, that's it, I switch off, let's
right.
forget about business and work and just be with who I need to be right now.
It's it is an interesting thing. So I've just finished a series with a real estate company recently. In fact, had a Zoom session last night
Mm.
with high performers in the real estate business. And so going back to that, I'm an active relaxer. That's what I convince myself, right? And we all convince ourselves, particularly in real estate. Oh no, it's my job to be available for everybody. Well, I'm available for everybody too. People watching this, if you're struggling with negative thoughts, reach out. If you don't know who else to, 1737 or Lifelines and those sorts of places, reach out to me. And I do take phone calls and I do take messages, but you do have to switch off. And so we used to switch off for generations. We worked in a workplace,
Yeah.
and in that workplace was a siren or a bell. You punched a time card, right? So we had that switch on, switch off. It was automatic. Now that no longer exists. And plus we're working from home. And so we have to have the ability to quickly switch from one to the other. And the way you can do that is, if you're on a computer at the end of your day, when you're logging off, watch the screen for a minute, just a few seconds. And as you see that little thing come up, that little squirrely thing, just say in your head, work's over. Or
Right.
you could say, I'm logging off, right?
Mm.
So physiology and psychology go together in our well-being. Physiology doing something with the body, psychology doing something with our thoughts. And so looking at that and saying, right, work's over. Also, what you can do is when you stand up from your desk, and I say that people, if you're working from home, only work from the same location. Don't go moving it around the house, because otherwise you're moving your work.
Yeah.
into relaxation areas, right? So if you've only got a dining room table, that's where you do your work.
Mm-hmm.
And when you stand up, you just go, work's over. You say work's over.
Yeah.
Step outside the door or step outside wherever you are, big deep breath, relax. Now, you can do that even at nighttime. So you're going to sit back down to do work. So you're sitting back at the work chair. So we do this in the farming community. I do some work in the farming community where a lot of them don't have an office. So everything's done at the kitchen table. And so what they have the work chair and the eating chair, right? And so if you're eating, you're sitting there and you suddenly have a thought about work and you want to discuss it with somebody that's at the table, up in that chair, right? And you talk about work, back to the relax, right? Because our brains associate places with events.
Right.
And so having that understanding is very, very simple. Plus, there's a whole lot of things you can do around breathing things, but those are the simple things you can do. When I get a phone call, oftentimes I will leave my office and I'll go for a walk outside while I take the phone call. And that just breaks the pattern of me. So I'm not stuck in the office at home, right? So we've got to have these differences. When you're stuck in these places, in these locations, that very quickly becomes a rut. And we want to get into rituals. And so lots of things like that. I mean, there are ways, but that's probably the easiest way, and it does work. It comes from undercover police. When they go undercover, they used to go for full time and come out a little mad at times, and so now they go undercover for 3 or 4 or 5 days and go home, and they wear an article of clothing when they're at work. And that's something else you can do, right? So you notice I've got a shirt on, although we're not working. I have been at work at home doing a Zoom session. So I've got my work shirt on. I could have just speak to you. I could have gone and put a t-shirt on, but I thought, no, it's sort of work. So I'm doing a presentation so I keep the shirt on. So as soon as I finish here, off comes the shirt, on goes the t-shirt,
right?
Because I'm now finished work. So it's these little things that you do that just separates. It is the way to go. And our brain starts to become accustomed to it. It really does.
Yeah. Interesting. It's really just creating sort of habits or ceremonies that we go, now we're reaching, now we're not.
I love that. Ceremonies.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. So there's a video that you can watch that I promote is a Navy SEAL commander who, when he's retiring, he's got this retirement speech, and it's called Make Your Bed.
Right.
And he talks about why the military are made to make their bed, right? So they're starting their day in a structure.
Yeah.
If he says, if you have a bad day, you come home to a bed that you made, and that'll give you encouragement that tomorrow will be a better day. I mean, it's just, and I love that ceremonies, right? So our brains run in neural pathways, they're called. How do you learn to ride a bike? Practice, practice, practice. How do you learn to switch on and off from work? Practice, practice, practice. How do you learn to worry?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
We're all very, very good at learning how to worry. I think I am. I'm exceptionally good at learning how to worry.
You and me both. So worry is both. There's a hereditary component to it. We know that, but there's also over 50% of it's become a habit. Yeah.
Interesting. So you do your training. You do a little bit of keynote speaking as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I love doing keynotes. I get really nervous, but it's actually quite easy to hide in a big hall, even though everyone's looking at you. But I do get really, really nervous, and I oftentimes they'll do a big, intro to me and read out some of my bio and stuff, and I get embarrassed, and I guess a lot of people do that. But so I might jump up on stage and say, oh, "You thought I'd be much bigger." Or much taller, and because I don't know what to say, and I'm like, well, people will clap, and I'm like, no, please, I might be rubbish. Don't clap. Let's just leave it till the end, because I'm embarrassed about it. But I love doing it. I love getting up in front of people and watching their face. So I joke the whole way through, dealing with a serious subject, right? So how can you engage with people, make them laugh about things? But I really do. Take a joke at myself a whole lot. That self-deprecation, people like that, but I'm actually aiming it at them. So I'll say something about why has the world become complex? Too many decisions to make. So you decide you're going to have a different cup of coffee. You go into a cafe and you look at the board. Should I have a flat white, should I have a mochaccino, should I have a cappuccino, should I have a frappuccino? I'm really sure. What sort of cup should I have? Should I take away cups?
Yeah.
Here? We're doing the same inside our head. And
Yeah.
I'll say, who do you talk to the most in your day?
Mm.
And I'll go, yourself. And if you're sitting there going, no, I don't, you're doing it right now.
Yeah.
And so I just make jokes about it, you know. And so how self-talk, it's important what you say to yourself. And so all the way through. And I really do enjoy it, particularly afterwards when you get those dopamine of that sense of satisfaction afterwards is just truly humbling. You know, I've never been trained in it, but I'm very lucky, very lucky.
Fabulous. One final question. We touched on it a little bit earlier with COVID-19. We are a few hours from knowing some decisions and what's going to happen. And hopefully, and I'm crossing my fingers, we're going to go out and everything will be released. But there's a chance that it won't happen. What are some things, and you did touch on it a little bit earlier, but what are some things that we can do if we are again back in it to make that we can do to make our lives easier, that we can handle what's happening? Because as you said earlier, it's that uncertainty, and uncertainty creates anxiousness, and then we worry more. So how can we handle things a little bit better with it?
Yeah, so in times of uncertainty, so all day we reflect on ourselves. So I'll ask somebody in our session, you know, what was the name of the first school you went to? And they'll tell us, and I'll say to everybody else, what was the name of your first school? Well, you were thinking of it, weren't you? And everyone goes, oh, how did you know that? You know, if a dog could say one word, what would it be? Most people would say woof, right? Because that's what we've been programmed, or that's what we read, our parents read it to us, right? So we're programmed creatures. But we reflect on ourselves the whole day. Now, when we go into periods of uncertainty where we don't know, because we are worriers, and what worry is future-based. It's a risk management tool. Worry is a risk management tool. Where is the danger in the future? And we can't find the future because it hasn't happened. All we can do, should things become uncertain again, is go back to what we did last time. And that's just what you and I have talked about, bringing a structure to your day, right? So I watch people on social media saying, you know, I've got this stack of books, I'm going to read these, or I'm going to binge on Netflix. And, you know, everyone's going to. So I've asked people, so did you read those books? Mm-hmm. Did you binge on Netflix? No. Did you panic? Right, so panic buying. So when we are in uncertainty, we go for our basics of life. You know, Maslow, the hierarchy of needs, described it perfectly. Food, water, shelter, air, when uncertain times. So don't beat yourself up. You know, I went and filled my car up before the last lockdown that we had. And my daughter, as I was leaving the day before lockdown, she said to me, are you going somewhere in the next 4 weeks? And I was like, I don't care. I'm still going to fill the car up. You know, and so we do these little things, and that's what we gather our family around us, right? But if you want to binge on Netflix, if you want to read books, right? So if you want to binge on Netflix, get up at your normal time on Monday to Fridays. So you get up at 6 or 7, whatever time you got up, have a shave, put your makeup on, shower, whatever you got to do, that same routine, have breakfast, whatever. And at 8 o'clock, you watch Netflix, and you watch Netflix until 10. At 10 o'clock, you turn Netflix, put it on pause, and go and have a cup of tea for 15 minutes. Come back and you watch Netflix. And so you try and keep to that same structure. If you're going to get exercise, still stick with it. So make sure your break times are the same. Make sure your day starts the same. Try not to go to bed too early, because in times of uncertainty, we are thinking about the future the whole time, and we're becoming more tired. So we're going to go to bed about an hour earlier than normal. And you know, when you go to bed early, that voice comes, I'm glad you've come to bed early. I've got a couple of questions to ask you. And next thing, you're talking to yourself in your head, trying to get to sleep, right?
Yeah.
And then our dreams are a little weird. Why? Because the dreams happen, we go through 3 to 5 of those dream cycles every night, is the day's events, what's been going on inside our head. And that's why they're a little crazy. So all we can do, now we're sort of ready for it. So in Auckland here, we're in level 3. So we were sort of, it's still hard, but we got the idea of what's going on. Yeah. So what worked for you back then, bring that straight back. First day, right? So that's what we have to do. So try and stick to a pattern of behavior. and then just branch out a little bit. The way we adapt to a changing world is one, breathing, and we've got free techniques on our, if you know, people come into our website, under you contact our sleep tips, we will send you the sleep tips. It's free, and there's a whole lot of breathing techniques of how to reduce our thinking and how to get to sleep within 3 to 5 breaths, how to stop waking between 2 and 4 in the morning, usually around 3 a.m.
Yeah.
All of those are there and they're free. Anyone can grab them. I just know that there might be a delay because it's an actual person that we send them back. We don't have those automated machines.
Mm-hmm.
And so bring the patterns back. 3 things that we all stay well is, one is socialization, talk with other people, exercise, 15 to 20 minute walk every day to burn off adrenaline and cortisol at the end of the day if possible, and then sleep. If you do those things, 3 things right, food's okay, you know, eat food that's as natural as possible. Mm-hmm. That's it. And those things, and just don't look too far ahead. Be gentle on yourself. We have an inner critic, don't we, that beats us up. Sometimes we, you know, we're told to be nice, but our default setting is anger, because it's fight or flight and freeze. That's the order, right? So don't beat yourself up if you say something wrong to the checkout person. Just apologize straight away. So sorry, look, I'm just having a bit of a difficulty at the moment, and just move on. Yeah,
brilliant, really interesting. Lance, this has been incredible. I learned so much, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So I am grateful for having the opportunity to have met you virtually earlier today, and meet you face to face virtually later in the day. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been my great pleasure, and happy to do it again anytime. And maybe someday we'll actually meet up face to face.
Possibly, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Take care.
You.
See you again. Bye.